was having a dream. And so, it's been 25 years since I've been in college, but, I had a dream that I was late for a final exam in a history class. So I went running up through there to the class, and of course it's a big auditorium, and of course all the back row seats are full when I get in there to take this. So I'm already in a panic. So I'm late, so I have to walk down through the crowd to the front row, and so your body's probably starting to wake up. But the worst part about it was when I was late for the exam and walking down in front of everybody, I forgot to put on my pants too. So that'll bring you up out of the bed and be ready to roll for the day. You see what I'm saying? But anyways, it's funny how the mind works on that and how things happen years and years later. But we welcome you here to this Forestry Forum. We've kind of switched gears a little bit and looking at some topics that we're going to dig into today. But one of the main partners that have partnered with us from the beginning is the city of Summersville. And so, Mayor Schaefer, why don't you welcome everybody, because you've got a better style than I do. You probably didn't have a bad dream.
No, actually I was a little scared. I mean, Brian, it's really not that I show up at a meeting and want to know about a college guy's dreams. So I'm glad yours wasn't where it probably could have gone. Hey, listen everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Summersville Arena and Conference Center. I was thinking about it today driving up here, how this came to be. And we proudly have a forestry committee at the city of Summersville. And of course, our chairman sits right over here, Chris Neal. And this year we celebrated our 17th year as a Tree City. And we're extremely proud of that. Not only that, we have a total inventory of our forest in the city, and we will manage it, and of course doing so helps us in trying times with the storms that we all endure these days. So anyway, it was a gentleman on that committee years ago that used to chair it, Fred Williams. Many of you know Fred. And Fred said, maybe we should take this to a bigger level. He was always interested in the next level. We got connected with the right guy here, the shaker and mover, Brian, partnered with West Virginia Extension, and we've been at this many years. And it's so interesting because every time I've left here, I learned something that I didn't know before I came. And then, of course, the dynamics of the world we live in today, that's an all-day conversation in itself. And then, of course, Brian, we try to do this about every quarter. Sometimes we slide and it's every 6 months. But I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank the partnership with Brian and West Virginia Extension Service and the many of you that are here that we've shared a partnership with on this platform. And then, of course, at the end of the day, it speaks to this great state that we live in and our economics. As coal has withered away, timber in the forest is still going to be here, always going to be here, and hopefully it's a economic piece for this state for many, many centuries to come. So again, thank you. The city's proud to be a supporter of this and bring you all together. Just keep it on your radar because we'll continue to do this. So thanks for coming out today, and I'll turn the program back over to Brian.
Yeah, so what makes this possible is Fred had a vision, and it's funny that we've circled back around to this. Fred always said, Brian, we've got all this great timber, and we've got all this great lumber, and how could we add some value to it? So my thing when I stepped in this, I thought, boy, would it be great if we could bring back the furniture business to West Virginia, or add another value, but add something on to one of the existing things we have. And so we never got there. And I think Todd is going to talk about that today with Jim Hamer. But we've evolved into more of an educational thing. And so we've done some things. We worked with the college and set up courses for loggers. That didn't work too good. We did some things with the Forest Service. Brought in some economic things to help some contractors. That worked really well. And so we've tried to just turn it into an educational piece to kind of, one, make everybody aware that what's going on in the forest industry. And sometimes I think that's best if we bring that to the front and if the community has a good understanding of what's going on out in the world and out in your industry, and sometimes education will make that sustainable. Does that make sense? And so hopefully we can do that and show that forestry is an important part. And yes, it is an economic engine, especially for our area here, and as you all well know that. But the partnership has been built, and so one thing that I like to kind of do to kind of help the speakers and also help the folks in the room is we get an idea of who you are and your role of what you're doing here in maybe your job or why you're here.
I'm Mike Arnold with the West Virginia Department of Agriculture.
Andy Stocks with the West Virginia Department of Agriculture, Plant Industries.
Todd Webb with Jim C. Hammer Lumber Company and Hammer Pellet.
Hi, Michelle Parsons, West Virginia Department of Agriculture, Business Development.
You met the mayor.
Hey, wait, let me say one more thing, because you always think about something when you sit down that you said, and maybe I didn't say it right. I said coal's withered away. Of course, coal hasn't withered away. And I realized we're on TV, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's gonna be out there. Extremely proud of what the natural resources are of this state, great state. Of course, we know the challenges coal's had and the challenges timber's had. And, we hope that in some way we can bring them both back. But, there's been challenges in the coal business, so that's what I was speaking to, not that it withered away. I'll be assassinated when I get out of here.
It's your TV station, so.
Exactly. We might edit that out. No, we don't edit.
Gloria King, New River Community Technical College.
Russ Jordan, New River Community Technical College, I do director of business development.
Casey Olzak, supervisor of warehouse and timberlands.
Bill Dempsey, area manager, warehouse and timberlands.
Sharon Glasgow, Laura Crew, Harbor Treasurer.
Okay. Since COVID, nobody wants to handle the mic, so I'll just handle it, right?
Pat Conley, W Extension.
Chuck Copeland, West Virginia Division of Forestry.
Jeremy Jones, Director of the West Virginia Division of Forestry.
Jack Spencer, West Virginia Division of Forestry.
Jimmy Jenkins, Warehouser, Wood Products.
Jason Hattersley, District Ranger, Marlington, White Sulphur Ranger Districts on the Gila National Forest. Mill Litton, I'm forester with AHF Products.
Jim Brown, Consulting Forestry.
Chris Neal, Columbia Forest Products.
And one of the major partners that's worked with us over the years, and Chris has been a little busy the last little bit, so.
Steve Hart, Party Resources.
John Tuggle, Region 4 Plan and Development Council.
Gary Roberts, Nicholas County Commissioner.
Hi, Leslie Drake. I'm with the U.S. Commercial Service.
Hello, I'm Amy Beth, yes, and I'm also with the U.S. Commercial Service.
Jesus Velasco, Economic Development.
Good morning, Hannah Krokovo, Economic Development.
Gabrielle Drake with Economic Development.
Ashley Amos with the West Virginia Department of Agriculture.
And so this is Ashley is the last partner that we brought into this. So Ashley and I usually talk about every other week with her being with the Department of Ag and kind of what she's working on and what she's doing. And so in a casual conversation, it just brought up that she was going to do some work going to something with some export markets. And one of the topics was timber or lumber. And I thought, I didn't know the Department of Ag worked in anything like that. And so she got to tell me about some of the folks that's on your agenda today, and I said, we need to bring that to the Forestry Forum, and let's hear what's going on. And so it's a good partnership. I think we brought some good resources to the table to hear some information on what's happening out there. And again, like I said, it's always about the education, so a day is not a day unless you've learned something. So hopefully we can take something away from that today. So Todd, I saw you slipped in on.
Yeah,
Todd, yeah.
I'm disappearing.
Todd's here with us today with Hammer Pellet Fuel, and Todd's going to speak a little bit about the current lumber export market and his insight. And Todd, you've probably been with Hammer 25 years?
25 years.
25 years. So Todd, if you want to come up here, I'd like for you to use the mic if you can.
No problem. I'll stay right here.
Or you can stand in the middle, whatever you like.
Stand right there, it's fine. Can you do me a favor?
Yes, sir.
You're doing such a good job. There's 20 here, probably not enough for everybody.
Okay.
It's just some reading material to go over what I'm going to be talking about.
Okay. Todd has 20, so we'll share some of these.
6 or 7.
If you'll just take one and pass it around, that'll help. And share with your neighbor if you can, and when you're finished, if you can maybe pass it to somebody that
Yeah, there's
needs
two
to.
different sets. One's one, one's not. Good morning, everyone. This one?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Brian, for inviting me, and Ashley, Mayor, Somersville, and stuff. So I'm very familiar with all these places, and a lot of other faces I've seen over the years. So I'll give you a background for myself. 25 years with Jim C. Hamer or Hamer Companies. First 10 years, when I first was hired, was fully in the lumber side of our business. Steve Hamer and Jim Hamer, his father, obviously, unfortunately has passed years ago, but hired me, and my first question in the interview was, how much travel would I need to be doing? Coming from a completely different industry. Andy Stott's, whoa, look at that.
Oh, wow.
Went to high school with that young man over there, and went to college at Marshall University, played golf there, then went on to try to do a little golf career in the PGA of America, and was in Florida for almost 10 years. And a member of mine asked me if I wanted to come back to West Virginia, and my son was born, and he was a couple years old, and I said, yes, every day since my son was born, I'd love to move back, but the job industry wasn't here for me. And we had a little idea, and we came back, and I kind of stayed in the golf industry and started. You guys may remember some of it. It's West Virginia Field, West Virginia Golfer Magazine, and as I'm driving back from Florida, pulling a U-Haul with all the stuff from my townhouse, and my wife was already up here, driving through Atlanta, they announced that West Virginia had become the oldest per capita state in the country, just beating out Florida. So we started West Virginia Retirement Times, right out of the Beckley newspaper down here, registered here. So spent a lot of time in this area at that time, and then got to meet the Hamers, bought the house, and here I am 25 years later. But back to the travel. Steve Hamer told me, week out of every month, you'll maybe leave on a Sunday, drive down through the Carolinas, start on Monday and work your way back, stopping at all the furniture factories and all the wood manufacturing facilities you would sell lumber to. Maybe have to go out on a lumber complaint every now and then, but that would be it. I made that trip one time. That was in 2001. And I came back and I said, what have I done? Every place is closing down or they're getting smaller. And he said, well, let's hop a plane. And we're going to first Japan, then we're into China. And on the way back, he said, how did you like it? I said, that was kind of exciting. It's kind of good. He said, good, because I don't ever come back. It's your job if you want it. So I filled up 2 passports, started off in China several times a year for a couple weeks at a time, moving the very same lumber that we used to, the beautiful lumber here, in the only state that is 100% in the Appalachian region. Moving that same lumber that we used to move up and down here in West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Connecticut, everywhere. Moving it into China to the very same factories. Many of them had the same stamp, the very same furniture name on that box. Come back here. And it saved us, to be perfectly honest. So we also, a lot of people invested in kilns. You had to kiln dry the lumber. And then 10 years later, after that, we unfortunately went through, as we all remember, if you're old enough, the Great Recession, and we had a pretty devastating time throughout the forest industry at that time. And so I, back and forth through those times, and China even started moving into Vietnam. So now we have those markets. And so here we are today with a forest industry that is also never recovered from that particular time, but a lot smaller, and some of those numbers you'll see on there. In 2005 and 6, North American hardwoods produced about 12 to 14 billion board feet annually. Last year we produced 4.9 billion. That number's on that one sheet annually. So that'll tell you the loss of produced hardwoods in this country. Some of that not driven because of export. It's also driven because of other products that have taken the place of hardwoods. Luxury vinyl tile, all kinds of other stuff that goes into homes now, and how homes are built. But there's still a very vibrant industry here but we do need the export market. There's a letter that is the Hardwood Federation, many NHLA, Hardwood Federation, AHMI, the Appalachian Hardwood Manufacturing Incorporated. And this Hardwood Federation, this letter was sent out right after President Trump was elected to congratulate him for that and to also discuss the devastation that happened in 2017 during the first tariff war, we'll call it. And on the second page, I'm just going to read directly what it says. The U.S. hardwood industry was devastated by the trade war with China between 2018 and 2020. Prior to the dispute, China purchased 50% of the U.S. hardwood grade lumber exports, approximately $2 billion worth of product. In response to the tariffs being placed on Chinese goods by the first Trump administration, in September 2018, China imposed retaliatory tariffs of up to 25% on American hardwood products exported to China. The immediate impact of these tariffs was over $1.045 billion, with a B, in lost lumber sales to China. During the trade war years and a lasting trade reduction valued at over $730 million every year, even after the tariffs were removed. That's gone. As you may know, Russia's on the border, so they've got a vast forest, and they can also replace our lumber. So it's a constant battle. And the next thing is, since the tariffs were removed in 2020, the Chinese market for U.S. hardwoods has remained at about half of the 2017 levels, with decreased market share and all the other things. So that's part of what we're talking about here, and what we hope we've got a little reprieve for 90 days. That was 3 weeks ago was a very traumatic time in the hardwood industry for many exporters. And right now, logs, some people may be able to correct me on this, but I believe we still have a ban on any U.S. logs going to China at this point. They banned all log shipments. But you had to have your product out by May 10th, I believe it was, whatever the date was. March 10th. And it had to arrive by, or March 4th, April 13th. We were right up against it. As an industry, we had several containers on the water at Jim Lumber Company. And with delays going, I'll just use an example, we had 6 or 12 containers that were supposed to arrive before April 13th, but then they were delayed to April 14th. Immediately, our customers in China said, we're not picking it up unless we split the tariffs. So we would get the value of 37.5% on the dollar, losing 66% of the value of that lumber. So we started, within the export industry, what I'm here to talk about, so we're working with our freight forwarders, and we would have to, all of us had to look at what was called bonded warehouses in China, where we would still try to own the lumber as it hit there. It could pay for this bonded warehouse where it would be held until the tariff situation get resolved and we could find another customer. That all cost roughly about $3,000 a month, not to mention the transportation and then the time frame each month that you would go on, still not knowing what you were going to have to split in tariff fees for our lumber to get in. Thankfully, at the last hour, there was a 90-day reprieve. So now we're looking at August 13th as the next day. So now we're quickly trying to get all shipments out. So we're within the export market, you've got to be very aware, freight forwarders, ship lines that you can deal with, and trying to constantly stay on top right now of when that ship is going to arrive. Because other companies within the industry have had thousands of containers stranded on the water or in bonded warehouse at this point. So the financial losses are devastating, even currently right now, in order to try to figure out where the markets are. I would love to say that without the export market, we have plenty of market to bring it back here. That is not the case. It would take years, if maybe never, that the furniture industry cabinet industry, and all those industries would be coming back here, building these factories back for that type of manufacturing, that specific type of manufacturing. I wish that it would, but as I've told people, talking with them before, I have a 25-year-old, 30-year-old, and a 32-year-old. I'd love to think that they admired, loved, cherished hardwoods, and especially from this wonderful Appalachian region. But anything that's in my house, when I have to get rid of it, will go to a dumpster. They would not want to carry all that beautiful hardwood, antique furniture. So somehow, as we move forward here in this forestry summit and what we're doing, we have to try to, and I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, but we have to make hardwood sexy again. We have to make it sexy again to work in a factory. My children are the buying power for the next 30 years. My buying power is dwindling. I'm trying to hold on to what I've got. But they are the ones that are going to need to be working in the factory. They are going to be the ones that want to love those beautiful hardwood floors and that beautiful sleigh bed that's solid wood. And somehow, as an industry, if we are going to get anything back here, or if we're going to maintain, we need to make sure we keep pushing to allow us to have that export market into China and other markets, into the EU, into Canada, into Mexico, because we do ship all of that. And these tariffs will cripple us. Absolutely have already crippled us, and we've got a very short window in order to fix that. Hopefully, cooler heads will prevail, we'll come out okay. But moving forward from there, we have to still, those products that even if they're made in China or right back here, we have to have the next buying power to be able to recognize the value in that. And so a lot of our industries get involved with, a lot of our industries, whether it's in HLA, HMI, Hardwood Federation, AHEC, which when that immediately happened, some of the people here in the government know what that was like. AHEC was almost dissolved, and that is the American Hardwood Export Council. So that's what advocates for American hardwoods in all of these export markets. Thankfully, they've got some of their funding back to still try to do that, but a lot of things are put on hold. So it's not a time to set back, but it's a time to try to move forward, to try to promote, to recognize that what we have here in this wonderful state and what has fueled this state for many, many years, we do have to have those export markets. We can't just be shut off to the world and expect to be able to harvest the timber that we currently harvest and have a place to send it. Down chain for what I do right now currently with Hamer Pellet Fuel is we have a pellet plant in Elkins, West Virginia. That plant has been there since 2003. We built our original pellet plant in Mount Hope, West Virginia, where we once had a sawmill, not very far from here. And we were the first pellet plant built east of the Mississippi. Bob Zurich, Luke Magnetics built the original one out in Idaho. And Jim Hamer, in his wisdom, back in that day, said, what is this stuff? We need to do it, we're gonna invest in it. And because we struggled to get rid of our sawdust piles back in those days. And we did have the furniture industry, we did have all those things. You need to get rid of that sawdust pile, you couldn't run your sawmill. So it was a waste product. The very wood residue, chips and dust that we produce now, probably, and some of the people in the lumber industry here will probably testify that, the very waste that was once 30 years ago, 25 years ago, was waste product, and you paid somebody to haul it away, or you used it in a wood waste boiler if you did have kilns, or farmers may have taken it, has now become the only steady stream of revenue that a sawmill or a secondary wood manufacturer left in this country has. We have to bid for it. We have our own sawmills, but we don't produce enough of it. So we have to go out and buy the sawdust in order to make the wood pellet fuel. So that's a great thing. We continue to have sustainable forest here, using all of it. But if the wood industry goes away, we're not going to be cutting trees down to make sawdust. So we need that wood residue to continue to promote the very products that are here, the pellet fuel. There's other industry that have moved into the area to make other types of wood residue products. And so the export market needs to remain. It needs to be some with China, with Vietnam, and Mexico and Canada, the free trade that we had back and forth for us to be a vibrant industry. Otherwise, these tariffs go and stops immediately. I think we all, in the third grade, learned our times tables. And you can put 125% on it, you can put 2,000% on it. And think something that somebody's gonna pay that. It's not gonna happen. 0 times 125 is still 0. You're getting nothing from it. Business, it's just a business boycott, basically. And we don't have time to wait. So hopefully we see some mutual agreements between our countries that allow us as a timber industry in this state and what we're doing in the forest industry to continue to export to those markets. Because of all of the products that we do comes out of the forest here and what sustains all of the jobs. I think another thing that was in this letter that was right off the bat, and that I think it's a staggering number, but it says on behalf of the 1.8 million, mostly rural jobs, which you can speak of here, directly and indirectly supported by the U.S. hardwood industry, we, the members of the Hardwood Federation, write to congratulate Mr. Trump. And we look forward to working with him. We tried. That's what this letter's gone to. So we hope that this doesn't fall on deaf ears, what we're here to do for the export market. But I think that 1.8 million jobs is a staggering number. And that's probably about half of where it was 25 years ago. So now, where would we be if we cut that in half again? So, especially in this region. So I don't like to be a gloom and doomer when I'm standing up here, because I'm not. We're still here. We're still standing. We're still moving forward. We're still looking for markets. And I'm hopeful that maybe in my last, I've got 10 or 15 years left with Hamer, maybe I'm back talking to Steve Hamer about spending a week driving from West Virginia down to Carolinas and Virginia and seeing all the beautiful factories that have come back. But we need these next few years to maintain this export market. So if any of you that are currently in export, looking to get into the export market, and what little expertise I do have in it, you need to make sure that you are constantly staying ahead of what you're looking at out there with the people you're working with. Because we all know it's changing daily. So you need to have constantly look at your freight forwarders, the banking industry you're working with, the ship lines you're working with, how well they're connected. Do they have bonded warehouse space so that you can quickly protect the livelihood of your industry? Because otherwise, it's going to be stranded 3,000 miles away and millions of dollars sitting with no way to, not knowing what you're going to do with it, and having to renegotiate constantly. So hopefully we have some clarity here over the next 30 days. We need 30 days worth of clarity. If you don't have a container on the water, what is today? Yeah, if you don't have a container on the water by the middle of next month, and that's pushing it, and we don't have any clarity moving forward, you probably shouldn't put one on the water, because it won't make it by the August 13th technical deadline right now of getting to China or Vietnam. It's going to, at minimum, going to take 5 to 6 weeks. We've seen right now, because of the backlog, just getting a container, getting on ships, getting it in, and the delays that do happen, you're looking more at 6 to 8 weeks. So you can do the math. So the decisions being made, whether you're in export or not, it also is affecting our domestic markets and what we're needing to do in negotiating with trying to get the orders we need to go to our domestic markets. So in closing, there's an HMR here. It's a one-sheet deal. A lot of people are familiar with it. There's some handwritten notes down on that, just showing the production loss in the past 3 years. And there's a number at the top that says 2005 to 6, that's to 12 to 14 billion. 2025 is a question mark. Our best guess at this point is it will not exceed 2024. which will call it 5 billion board feet. I would expect that it would be less if we don't have some clarity that we can run business models, that we can bid on timber. We can accurately try to go out and bid on timber with our local landowners, state, federal, anything that's out there, and bid on this timber and put a price on it that we know we're not going to harvest tomorrow. It's going to take time to get out there in those woods and harvest that timber, but what is it going to be worth, 6 months down the road? And what market are we buying that timber for? There's some species that are currently not even sellable, not a market for it here in this market. I'll speak specifically of cherry. If it's not going to China, it's probably not going anywhere. So we need those markets in order to properly put a fair price on timber that we can operate profitably, that the landowner can justify harvesting their timber, and the state can value in that the jobs that are created by that, taxes that are created by that, and hopefully grow from there. So in closing, everybody fight hard. It's the best industry that I've been involved with. It's close-knit, family, a lot of people that have spent generations in this industry. I know this area here, without it, would severely struggle. So we need to keep our heads up and keep fighting towards having all markets open to our timber. And so by the tariff war is not the answer for our particular product. I can't speak for other industries. I'm not saying tariffs are not a good thing for certain things, but for our particular industry, we have to get a carve out. There just has to be. Or in those letters, you'll see that I think it was stated $430 million worth of some kind of subsidy our industry is going to need. So we're not looking for that, but if that's the case, that's what we're going to need. So again, thank you for your time.
Hey, Todd,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This letter to Trump represents the Hardwood Federation and the PAC Board of Directors. I think as Americans, we all want fair trade.
Sure.
And of course, nobody wants a trade war. What bothers me is, I think that the administration's using the trade war for the wrong purpose, meaning that it's to force these companies, we tout $1 trillion, investment. But their April numbers, the federal government April numbers, there are 400,000 vacancies in manufacturing jobs in this country today. And so when you made the comment earlier about bringing these plants home and that's what this is all about, that's unreal because we don't have the workforce. And so I guess the reason I bring this up is this letter really doesn't say anything. Do you all communicate in your communication with the federal government, the Trump administration, that you're using this trade war to get all this investment back in this country, which is great, and we all want fair trade. I think that's what it should be, is fair trade. But to use it to force these companies to make all this investment come home, that's not real, because we don't have the workforce.
I agree 100%. When I talk to anybody, and I'll say it here and again, somebody can throw rocks at me if they want, but unfortunately it's not coming back. When I said we need to make it sexy, Andy and I grew up in the same town. I'll use Spencer, West Virginia, for all of you that's familiar with it, okay? And when we grew up there going to high school, I'll tell you, 1985, graduated. And me 1 year younger. But we had Norris Industries that produced hubcap Virginia. We had Kelwood Sweater Factory that produced garments for St. John's Bay, J.C. Penney, all that stuff. We had State Hospital. That's what we're famous for, right? All of us, that's where we all live, State Hospital. My mom worked there. And I use that because my hometown. Anybody else wants to run it down, I get ticked off, but I can run it down. Okay? That's like your own kids. We had those industries there. And I know growing up in high school, you kind of looked at it and you said, we have some options. It's a great job working at Norris Industries. Decent pay at the time. You had some pension plan. You had this thing going on at State Hospital. And by the time I graduated high school, going on to college, it was you go to college, or
famous claim to fame at Marshall, going there and graduated very nice in my class. And Joe Fagan's, back then it was when he first started, you had to have his 2.0, you had 1 year probation, you had 2.0 to keep your grade. That wasn't me great, so easy. So I had the Marshall. Best part about it was, I think it was like 2.5 to 1 girls to guys there at that time. And I would play golf. That'd be easy. So I remember getting my grade was 1.8 first time. So my dad, Coach Fagan brought me and said, man, you're gonna be on probation. He said, I may not be back. My dad sees these grades. You may not see me. And it was bad, but my dad figured it out. He said, well, you're not going down to live with your buddy at Myrtle Beach in the Air Force and play golf all summer and work for the lifeguard or whatever. You're going to work at Burke, Parsons, and Bowlby, another place that was right there in Spencer. Tie mill and a Crisso plant. So I did that all summer long, night shift, and recognized what was going on. And so looking forward, what do we have? That 30 years plus that's passed, and my children, I use them 30 years, and to your point, I told my kids the whole time, they didn't have any of those options. I live in Canova. All those factories that have shut down in Canova that were once there. And their next door neighbor that worked there, and they had kids, and he lost his job, lost his house. And so blame me, but I've told them the whole time, that is not an industry you want to get into. And now I'm trying to tell them, just what we were talking about, the workforce. We need to get back there and get a job in that what factory. So somehow, back to my comment, we kind of got the cart before the horse here. Somehow the investment has to be back in, not necessarily calling lazy, but trying to make it, I'll take the word the wrong way, but sexy again, for them to want to go into a factory, run a piece of equipment, take pride in that, and recognize that the value is there to raise a family, be a middle class family. Because I can tell you that I admire some of these people who work in those factories in the horse industry in Spencer, West Virginia. They did have a mid-entry home and 2-car garage. And their son did get the car when he was 16. They took a trip to the beach. And I thought it was sexy. I thought it was great. Now Spencer has a Walmart that sits where the state hospital used to be, a Tractor Supply, Advanced Auto. Okay. I think we had, what, Pizza Hut maybe when we were there?
It's still there.
We had Pizza Hut when we were there. We had Dairy Queen, or no, Queen Bee. Queen Bee, right? And White's Restaurant. But now what do we have? We have a Taco Bell, McDonald's, a Wendy's, still have a Pizza Hut, Mexican restaurant, Chinese restaurant, Tutors. Yeah, Tutors. And I'm not trying to run all that down. I'm just saying that it's hard when you spend 30 years. So to make this where we're not moving back, this particular type of industry, in my opinion, is not coming back because the workforce isn't there. So we have to continue to push. That's what we're doing. To answer your question, what we're doing, trying to push as a company that we support, trying to make it easier, trying to make it more, I'll say, business friendly in order to come to harvest timber, to do what we know we're doing, to manage the forests as we do. Our particular industry is the stewards of the forests. Without it, we don't, if we're not protecting it, and that's what we've done for generations, 4 generations with the Hamers, is we protected that forest so we have a resource that it is renewable, it comes back. And we harvested, just look at the state, it's gorgeous. But that factory coming back here to use it's not going to be here. So if we're going to continue to have a sustainable forest here and utilize the value of it, we have to have those markets in China, those factories, because the workforce is not going to be for that particular type of manufacturing. So yeah, that's, we are, the NHLA, Hamers itself, me standing up here, is hopefully going to enlighten more people to also talk with their Congress, talk with their local associations, to let them know that we're all for it. But we can't get in a trade war because we won't survive. So, any other questions?
The production numbers that you're pointing out, correctly if I'm wrong, those are the lowest since they've been tracking
So people need to know that.
Yes, you're exactly right, it's the lowest, and so, again, that's another factor, coming back to it. Let's say that we did bring them back. Let's say that somehow we could snap our fingers, and there was a Broyhill furniture factory in North Carolina. And Bernhardt, Lassie, and Webb Furniture, and Deep and Allen, and all those places were back. They don't exist, one's a huge one, but anyway. Let's say they were there. First of all, you gotta fill them, for people to work. But then let's get out here, where are we gonna fill all the jobs at these sawmills? Where the sawmills are going back? Where's all these are very, where's all the loggers? Everybody's gonna be out here. It's gonna take, that is a trained, very highly skilled field to be in. So yeah, where we're at right now, we need to maintain it, can't get lower. And we can gradually build on that, but we just can't go full stop. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. So one thing that Todd brought to presence there is they're still looking. And so I think one thing that is good is we never lose our momentum in whatever we're doing. So if we stop today, sometimes it's hard to get started. So hopefully we'll keep digging and make things happen. So moving on with our agenda, I passed around a sign-in sheet. If you wouldn't care to get your email on there so we can keep connection, and I try to do my best of keeping everybody on that when we're going to have some educational meetings. So again, I've lost my agenda. I don't know, Todd, if you got it, but
Probably.
What do we got next, Jimmy? So I think we're ready to move into the Southern United States Trade Association. So Danielle Coco, right? Is she on Zoom?
Yes, she's on the
Okay. And she is coming to us, and Ashley is with the Department of Agriculture. And so Danielle will get you up on the screen here in just a little bit. And Danielle's coming to us from where today?
New Orleans.
She's in New Orleans. Okay.
Can you hear us, Danielle?
Yes, I can. Hello, everybody. Let me know when you want me to share my screen, and I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay, you can go ahead and share your screen. So hey, everybody. Again, I'm Ashley Amos out of the Business Development Division with the West Virginia Department of Agriculture. This is a little new to me. I normally work with farmers and producers with like produce and meat, other little value-added products. So this is a new industry that I'm getting into, and exports is still a little new to me too. But in my role, I'm kind of the liaison between us and SUSTA, the Southern United States Trade Association. And so SUSTA is funded by the USDA, but they work on a regional level. And so kind of how we come into play is that the West Virginia Department of Agriculture is a member of SUSTA, and Commissioner Leonhardt is the one that sits on the board. So I have Danielle, like I said, Danielle Coco here, and she's coming from New Orleans, and she'll kind of go over some of the programs that SUSTA offers.
Great. Yes, hi everybody. Thank you, Ashley. I am the Marketing and Communications Director at SUSTA. As Ashley mentioned, we're a regional trade association, and I'm based in New Orleans. But we have a pretty small staff of 14 people to cover this big region. So it's really through our partnership with the Departments of Agriculture and their staff, like Ashley, throughout our region, that make it possible for us to, cover such a wide area and offer our support to companies in all of these states. So thank you, Ashley, and your team for always being a good partner. And our mission is to help companies in the southern U.S. export their agricultural products internationally. So I will speak with you a little bit about the programs and how it all works. But first, we'll talk about eligibility. So several years ago, you would not have seen this little wood icon on the screen. Wood species were not something that we could support. We were mostly value-added food and beverage. But now we can work with wood. So yay, that's exciting. But at least 50% of your product has to be coming from farm, fished, or forested from the US ag. So when you think of a food or drink product, you think of the ingredients, but for all of you with wood and lumber products, I think it's usually, 100% of your product is coming from the US. So being federally funded, that's an important part of the program. And that we are helping you support your brand internationally. We're not creating access for US, hardwoods in another country. We leave that to the hardwood folks. We work individually with the, US companies to help you promote your brand and get your product out into the world. So on that front, the other, we call them cooperators. So these are the groups that receive similar funding to SESTA. It's AHEC, the Softwood Export Council, the Southern Forest Products Association, and the Engineered Wood Association. You may be familiar with some or all of these. As I mentioned, these are the folks that are gonna help more with, like, if you're trying to figure out market research or, what's going on in a certain country as it pertains to wood. SESTA, we might be able to help you find some information, but I would go directly to the source and go to these cooperators who might have their finger on the pulse of the industry more than we do. So just want to throw that out there. That works kind of similarly funded, but there are opportunities that we offer that they don't. So I'll talk with you about how you can use our programs, which fall into these categories. We offer export education, as well as events where you can meet qualified foreign buyers. And we have a cost share program where you can apply for 50% reimbursement of some international marketing expenses. So I will walk you through each of these. In terms of education, we have several things that we offer. One is an export readiness training. This is a 12-hour course. It's taught on Zoom so that we can offer it to everybody in our region, but it is a live course. So, you're interacting with the teacher and the other folks who are in the training. We limit it to 15 companies per training. So it's a, pretty individualized experience. And it's, teaching the fundamentals of exporting, from like, how do you classify your product? How do you do market research and pricing and logistics? And it's just a really good training for those companies that are new to exporting and want to, fully learn all these things. The spring training that we offer is wrapping up this week, so you missed it, but we'll offer another one in the fall. We also have webinars throughout the year. And we offer consultations with our in-country consultants. So SESTA has consultants that are based all around the world in, I want to say, like 10 different markets. And if you have specific questions that are that pertain to those countries, it's Canada, Central America, the Caribbean, Mexico, China, Hong Kong, India, Europe, South America. Be leaving one or two out. Anything, like I said, it's around the world, and you can register to talk with them directly, and they're, in country. They really know the lay of the land for their market in their country. So another good opportunity. And we have an export helpline. So if you are exporting and you run into an obstacle, our helpline is a great resource to help overcome, a certain whatever it is, like this question, what are the document requirements and product label requirements for getting rice to Tanzania? That's a question that came in through the helpline, so that's for those really specific questions. But yeah, all in all, export education, just, some capacity building and helping get you ready to export and overcome any obstacles. Then getting into our global events, we offer several different event types, and I'll speak specifically to the ones that are for the lumber and wood species industry. So we will sometimes be bringing foreign buyers here to the US to meet with our companies. These pictures are from an inbound trade mission where we brought, it was Chinese buyers to Mississippi a couple years ago. And this is a great opportunity for them to see your facility, meet you, and start those kinds of conversations. It goes a long way in export relations to have that face-to-face conversation, and if they can come to your facility, even more so. It's, exporting requires a lot of trust on both sides, and I think this, just lends to your credibility when they can actually see the place. We do not have any inbound trade missions scheduled this year for the wood industry, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm sure next year we will. So just keep an eye on that. We also offer outbound trade missions, which are opportunities for our US companies to travel internationally to meet with importers in a certain country. We do have an outbound trade mission for the wood industry this year, coming up in November. We're taking companies to Vietnam. It is a pretty robust experience. It will be one-on-one meetings with key buyers and importers in Vietnam, visits to plants or lumber distribution centers, interpreter services, and I think we'd be taking the companies to the Vietnam Wood Show as well, I would imagine, since we're making it's coinciding with that show. So these are great opportunities at a very low expense. So this is $600. It's only $400 if you register for May 31st, which is a Saturday. And included in this fee is the lodging or hotel for one person. So, the expenses that you would be responsible for are your flight and maybe some marketing materials, meals, but all of those things are eligible for 50% reimbursement through our cost share program, which I'll get into in a minute. So if anybody's interested in Vietnam, this might be a good opportunity to get there and experience that and meet importers there. All of our events are on our website, susta.org. You just go to the events page and you see them all there. Pretty self-explanatory. And then I'll talk a little bit about our cost share program. So this is where we can reimburse companies half of certain international marketing expenses. So I'll talk you through the expenses that are eligible first, and then I'll speak briefly about how to apply. So a big expense that we see a lot of companies come in for is they want to exhibit at international trade shows, like Vietnam Wood or the Dubai show or whatever it is. If you want to exhibit at those shows, you can apply for 50% reimbursement of your booth fee, travel for 2 people, which would be airfare, hotel, and meals and incidentals per diem. Even your giveaway items like these up on the screen, you could put your logo on a koozie or whatever it is, and those are also 50% reimbursable. Your marketing materials, the list kind of goes on, but it's a great opportunity to make these big international trade shows affordable for a small business. Then the outbound trade missions. So I mentioned, we're hosting a trade mission to Vietnam. So that is eligible for 50% reimbursement of, we pay for one person's hotel in full, but that person's airfare, if a second person is coming, their travel expenses are eligible. Sale materials, your giveaway items, all of those expenses are also included. If you do any advertising targeting a foreign market, you could also apply to get 50% reimbursement of that as well. If you want to translate your website, so this is one of our, I mentioned we mostly work with food and beverage companies, but this is a pasta sauce company out of Florida who had our cost share program reimburse them to translate their website into Spanish. So it was the translation and the web development cost that they applied for. And there are shows in the US that the USDA considers international. And for these shows, you can apply for 50% reimbursement of your booth fee and your marketing materials, everything that we can do for the international shows except for your travel. So the ones I wanted to point out are the International Builders Show and the International Mass Timber Conference. When I was just kind of scanning this list, those are the ones that jumped out as ones that might be of interest to you all. I don't know much about those shows. I've never been. I don't even know where they're located, but we get this list from the USDA every year, letting us know which US trade shows are international. So if you're familiar with these and that is something of interest, then maybe it would be a good opportunity to apply for the program. So our eligibility requirements are that the company has to be headquartered in the SUSTA region, so those southern states, small by Small Business Administration standards. So that's usually by employee numbers, and it's usually a pretty high number, and you're still considered a small business. Adequate resources and products supply. We just want to make sure that before a company hops on a plane to Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, that they're really ready and that they can support the export orders that come in. So that's just something that we want to make sure a company feels comfortable with. Sufficient annual sales. For the cost share program, we want to make sure that a company in the last year had at least 100,000 in sales. Sometimes we meet companies when they're brand new, and we want to make sure that they kind of have their legs under them before, like I said, they're hopping on a plane and exploring international markets. So yeah, we can always, if you have questions about that, we can chat. And then we work with manufacturers, growers, farmers co-ops, and export management companies. And the first step is just creating your MySUSTA account. This is free. It just gets you into our database, gives us some information about your company so we can review you and make sure that the company is eligible. And then, if you're eligible for our events, great, we'll let you know. And then you can just register for an event and pay for it online. And then Cost Share does have a more in-depth application. Just because we are reimbursing companies federal dollars. So just keep that in mind, that you do have to apply in advance for cost share funding. And if that is something you're interested in, please be in touch with me, because I will explain that application process in more detail, on an individual basis. This is my email address, Danielle@susta.org. If we have not met yet, then please be in touch. We'd love to get you into the database and start talking with you about international opportunities and how we can support you.
I would just like to say again, as she said, your headquarters, as long as your headquarters, because I was talking to another company, as long as your headquarters are in the SUSTA region, even if you're manufacturing in another state outside of the SUSTA region, you're still eligible.
Yeah. Yes, I'll pull that list up again for the map. There it is. Yeah. So, we have to go by headquarters because it's a federal program. If a company is headquartered outside of our region, they would access similar programs just through a different cooperator, a different group. So there's a group that handles the Western U.S., a different one that's food export handles the Midwest, and then there is one that handles the Northeast. So I can also, if you're headquartered outside of this region, I can put you in touch with the right group.
Any questions? No, we'll move on to the next one. Okay. Thank you, Danielle.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
Good information. Good information. Were any of you aware of that? So it looks like there's some tools maybe down the road. That goes back to what you talked about. They're an important market for some of our wood. This Vietnam trip, maybe that may be something that
Brian, our company's done several of those, well, through West Virginia as well. And it is important. That's one thing. AHEC is tied in with a lot of that too, so it's important to do some things. Otherwise, it's not it'd be exciting, but it's not there's a lot of things that go into going into another market. So having those resources is very exciting.
do you want to introduce? Go ahead. Yep. Thanks, Ashley.
Okay, so we're gonna switch it up a little bit. So we're gonna have the West Virginia Economic Development folks talk about their programs. So we have Jesus Velasco and Gabrielle Drake and Hannah
Krulova.
Okay.
Just passing these out for information. So it's easier to follow what we're talking about. market, and then you have B2B meetings with potential clients or partners. For the shows, we are the organizers of the space, and then we use your graphics and your information to promote the company that you're there with. Website assessment and market research, that is typically done with our partners, the U.S. Commercial Service, and they'll dig into it a little more when they're up here. We do have the STEP grant funding, and that is one of our biggest services. We'll get into it. And another thing we do is the Governor's Export Awards, which I'll talk about a little more later. This is an example of a trade show booth. This was organized in Japan, India. Beautiful booth, beautiful space. You can see all the graphics of the companies up there, and how they're all organized together. So we just put it here as an example. Just a quick overview of the events list that we've had going on this year. We already gone through the Avalon Air Show, the trade winds. We're coming up on the Spain Portugal mission, and then a couple more shows this year. So all of these shows and how we look at them, we kind of try to see the potential for the businesses that are interested in going to the shows, and the markets that we're trying to target. So in this year, we kind of more looked into the air show, or aerospace and defense, and then identity. But if you have any shows that are interesting or you would love to go to, definitely send them our way, and we can look into them and see if there's a potential to go. Just an example of B2B meetings for the trade mission. Once again, this is subsidized with by the West Virginia Economic Development, but the service itself is provided by the U.S. Commercial Service and the Rural Export Center. Something that's available to the qualifying businesses whenever you get into the exports, to ensure that your website is visible enough to the international buyers. The way it works, they examine your whole website page and then come back with a report of what can be improved or modified for it to appear higher in the search, so that those potential buyers find you easier. And with the market research, that's another report that can be done, and that is for the potential of where your business can go. The world is big, you never know where to start from, especially when it comes to exports. So instead of kind of wasting the time and trying to go to different markets yourself, the report shows you where the most potential is, so you can target those specific places.
So the STEP grant is the biggest grant that we work with in our department, and it is funded through the U.S. Small Business Administration, so it is a federal grant. And the things that it covers sound very similar to SESTA's cost share program. Ours is a little different. It covers 75% of all eligible expenses, up to $15,000 per 2-year funding cycle. And like SESTA's grant, it covers like trade show expenses, travel, airfare, website, internationalization services like translation. So anything that your business would need to enter the exporting market or expand your exports, this grant could help cover any activities associated with that. I think something that was different from SESTA's grant is this grant does cover domestic travel. If it's to an international trade show, like within the U.S. if there's an international presence. And it can be a little more relaxed regarding if it's a trade show or not. Like if there are overseas meetings that you would like to attend with potential partners or clients, the grant can help cover travel costs for that. And again, certifications and compliance testing. I think that's the only thing I didn't mention from that list. And it can also help support some of the U.S. commercial services, like Exim Bank loan funds that can help secure like large purchases that you may be entering as a business. It can help cover those premiums and other and things that Leslie and eBay will discuss shortly.
Thank you.
So every year, our office also organizes the Governor's Export Awards, and that's a great opportunity to come together in a room full of fellow exporters. It's a day full of networking and some educational pieces. We do have a seminar portion to it, followed by the award ceremony itself. We're hoping to have the governor there present this year. It's new administration. We'll see how that goes. But again, a great day of networking and events, and we would love to see everybody in this room be in that room together with the others, celebrating your exports and your achievements. There is an application form if any of you are already exporting and never received an award like this before, or if you've had any sales in the past. We'll be extremely happy if you apply and are present there. And this is just our contact information. That's me and Jesus. We keep forgetting to put Gabrielle up here, but we will do that. We'll do better about it. But if you have any questions, we're here. We're welcome. Happy to answer and talk more about everything we've just mentioned. I know it's a lot, and we'll go through it kind of fast. Do you want to add anything?
Hello guys, I think that they covered everything. I think that this is a very useful help that the state is normally sponsoring. Like all these events that Hannah described in the list, I'm gonna go to that. All these events were sponsored or are sponsored by the state of West Virginia. So all the things that you have to do is just get your travel itinerary in place, meet with clients in there, and everything else is covered by the state of West Virginia. Like we have this STEP program, so we complement the STEP program with the state of West Virginia. So if you combine those together, you basically have a mission or a trade show for almost free. Like if you make the math, is the booth itself and all the expenses that are from the shows or the missions are covered by the state, and then all the traveling part is covered from the state. So if you do the math, you can have, for example, for Avalon, we took 4 companies to Avalon in Australia, and I mean, you can imagine how expensive it is to go to Australia and everything, and the companies probably are spending, I would say, $2,000 at most. So it's really nice. It's really, really important to have potential and exposure out of the United States. So I think that this is a great opportunity for you guys to come with us and represent West Virginia. And that's it. Thank you guys.
Any questions for now?
Oh, you didn't get it?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, so next we'll have Nive Diaz and Leslie Drake with the U.S. Commercial Service. I'll give their little spiel.
While anybody's getting set up, I'll just say hello. I'm Leslie Drake. I'm the director of the U.S. Commercial Service here in West Virginia. We have an office in Charleston and one in Wheeling. So I just want to give you a little idea of who we are. And I'd like to thank you all for inviting us to be part of this today. Over the years, so lights go out and the sound gets big. I've been in this career for a long time. Not much behind Todd when it comes to like longevity in this arena. There have been times in the past where we worked really closely with the hardwood industry. We would work with the state of West Virginia to organize trade shows, to go to some of the bigger furniture shows in Europe. I think Todd and I may have gone to Germany together back in the day, to Cologne. We would do trade missions to parts of Asia, We would bring in foreign buyer delegations. We worked a lot with the value-added hardwoods folks too. So we did some with logs and lumber, but we tried to do a lot too with at that time some of our value-added folks. So I've seen what Todd has talked about over his career too. But we always, I'm from West Virginia, from Charleston. Always lived here. So the hardwood sector is also kind of near and dear to my heart, and like how I've spent part of my career working with it. But what we hope to do here in this little presentation is to talk about how the U.S. Commercial Service, a federal agency, can work with you as you're trying to maybe find new markets. Maybe you're interested in selling to someone new, but you don't know if they're reputable. I know that the hardwood industry is tight, but if there's a new customer or a new rep or new agent, we have tools to help you vet those contacts to make sure they're reputable. Anywhere we have a U.S. embassy or consulate around the world, we have presence there too. We have commercial specialists like myself and eBay in place in these countries. And they also typically sit with our Foreign Ag Service colleagues. So the U.S. Department of Ag's, the Foreign Ag Service, commercial specialists who handle lumber and hardwood exports are really closely tied to us. So we can tap into that network too. I just wanted to give a quick intro why eBay got up and running. I'm going to turn it over to her and Steph probably all the way back there. But thank you again for having us.
Hi, everybody.
Can you hear me better with mic? My name is Enibe Diaz, and work with Leslie, U.S. Department of Commerce. And if I understand correctly, some of you are not lumber producers, more like in forestry, correct? And you work with sawmills and lumber. Okay, so we hope that you can help us spread the word about our agency to to the industry, into the industry. It's important for us to make sure that the community knows about us, so that we can keep identifying companies to work with. Like Leslie said, that's our presence around the world, and the one flyer that I passed around has a long list of countries where we have a presence and where we can help West Virginia companies and U.S. businesses in general enter and navigate those markets around the world. So every dot on that map consists of a U.S. Commercial Service team of local trade specialists that understand the market, the country. They're divided in industry sectors, as you can see here, advanced manufacturing, aerospace, agribusiness, and so on. And like Leslie said, when it comes to hardwoods and agriculture products, food products, we work closely with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and their team around the world. I think, Todd already kind of went over his journey in the exporting world. This slide just lists a few advantages of the exporting for businesses and some of the challenges or roadblocks, and I think that's where our role as a federal agency in partnership with the state and the agriculture, the Department of Agriculture, is to help businesses jump through those hoops. It's typically a learning curve. We need to identify what markets, we need to identify buyers. We can use some assistance, some financial assistance to travel and exhibit in those trade shows. You may find a sale now. Let's talk about logistics, export compliance, how to get paid, what are your options? You need working capital to export. So those are the different steps of the exporting process where we can come in and help you directly through our services or put you in front of the right federal partner. Some of the services that we offer is that in general, export counseling. Where are you in the exporting process? Are you exploring the idea of exporting? Are you already exporting and you need to expand into a new market? How are you doing with payments? we can have a one-on-one conversation with the business and try to identify how we can help the best. Hannah already mentioned we can look at the websites for the companies. We can offer market research that's readily available on our trade.gov website, which is listed somewhere on the flyer. If you go to our trade.gov website, you will find all kinds of, there's a data center where you can, click around and look at trade statistics by state, by the country, by product. We have a country commercial guide, which is like an encyclopedia of doing business with all of these countries where we have a presence, divided by leading sectors of opportunities, market entry strategies, challenges. They're updated every year, and all of that is readily available on our website. We also have services that are customized, so we can help you assess your market potential in each of these markets. We can also help you vet companies that are interested in doing business with you from other countries. It's always a good idea to conduct some due diligence, because that really can help you with your export compliance process. So we can either, contact our office in another country and ask if they can help us look up this foreign buyer, or we can conduct like an investigation where they will visit the place of business and provide a full report for you to identify red flags and most importantly mitigate the risk, because I think a key aspect of being successful international is finding a good distributor, a good buyer. So we hope that we can help with that. The business matchmaking can happen at a trade show, can happen on your own. If a company's traveling to a market to conduct their own business visits, we can add more meetings. We can create one from scratch in a country that we have identified together. When we say business matchmaking, we will put you in front of potential distributors, buyers, agents, whatever fits your target customer, and they will have been contacted by our in-country team on behalf of the U.S. government, and that's how we can filter and get to the ones that express interest in doing business with you. So you hop up the plane and there's an agenda of meetings, and we can set up drivers, interpreters if necessary. So that is our business matchmaking service, and that can be like an individual service for a particular country just for you, or sometimes we organize large trade missions where we take a group of U.S. businesses to a particular market or a region of the world and conduct this matchmaking for each of the companies. So we work with all industry sectors, so you will have your individualized meetings. We can also help with commercial diplomacy. If there's a trade dispute or a trade barrier, or if a country's not complying with a trade agreement, you can report that to us, and we have a specialized team that can help resolve some of those disputes. Trade events, we have a whole agenda of trade events. We go to many countries. Some of these events are very industry specific. When it comes to lumber and wood products, I think, tapping into commercial service events, state and SUSTA could be a good variety. You will definitely find a market to go to if you pay attention to all of the events that are available. This is some of the kind of like the value of exports around the world. So as you can see, for example, Germany has 44% of the GDP is exports, whereas the US is a little smaller. So this just kind of shows that there's opportunity for more US businesses to tap into the exporting and its benefits. Companies that export grow faster and are less likely to go out of business. These are some statistics of West Virginia exports in 2024. It's small, but we included it in case you wanted to take a look at what's being shipped out of West Virginia. Chemicals, there's vehicle parts, there's coal products, power transmission equipment, aerospace, and others. And some of our main partners are Canada, China, Belgium, Mexico, Netherlands, Germany, Japan, India, and Brazil. That may look a little different for lumber, but I do see, China there, Mexico. So, and this is a presentation that I'm recycling that we used for a more in-depth training in exporting. So I just kind of left these big title slides to show you, we can help you classify your product and understand the logistics of it, and how to comply with the US government, how to comply with the foreign government. We can help you navigate documentation. We can help you understand and make sure that you comply with US free trade agreements. We can help you understand export controls. And I like this slide because this is some of the logos for some of the companies in West Virginia that we have had the amazing opportunity to work with. It's just very broad. It's mostly small businesses doing different things. So I like this one because it shows the actual products. So there's consumer goods, there's industrial products, machinery, we have docks, we have diver tracking mechanisms, we have stained glass that has been made in West Virginia for over a century. So we're equipped to help companies, in all industry sectors with all kinds of products, including services. And I am particularly within the U.S. Commercial Service at the Rural Export Center. And the only difference here is that my role is to make sure that our outreach reaches rural communities. And we have, oh my God, dropped the mic. And we have some services that are specialized for rural companies. They consist mainly in market research. And this is just an example of one of our reports where, a business in West Virginia can work with a research team and decide what are some of the data points that indicate market potential for your product in another country. And we crunch all of that and rank over 150 countries around the world by level of opportunity, so that you can use this for your export strategy and try to, understand where to focus your resources or what countries to analyze in more detail. We can help you analyze a selected market in more detail, generate a contact list. So, and I have flyers for the Rural Export Center sitting in that corner. But, the biggest takeaway that I hope that we're able to share with you is that there's a lot of resources available for West Virginia businesses in all industry sectors, including, wood products and agricultural products. And we are here to help. And I think we can make this process a little bit easier, reduce the risks involved in this. What it does take from businesses to be more successful is consistency, level of commitment, allocating some time and resources to exporting. So we're here to help you, and we hope to get to know you more, and happy to work with your contacts and clients as needed. Thank you.
Any questions?
Can she go back to that, I think it's about 10 slides back.
The statistics?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting, number 21, there's a drastic difference, it's the same concept with our industry. The next one. industry has followed that trend.
Some of the, the export statistics for West Virginia can look like peaks in peaks, and it does have to do with the coal industry and the steel industry around the world. And we can certainly, if you want some specific data, trade data, we can certainly pull those numbers for you and kind of try to customize the information that you need.
So what are you saying, Sharon?
Well, I think it just resembles what we're going through. Everything else is down, and the same as our industry is down since 21 easy.
I think, Sharon, what, like you're talking about, I think the biggest thing with the timber industry, and you see that number high in 2021, a couple of things happened. One, we were just, we had COVID. One thing that helped hardwoods for our forestry industry, and I hate to say it, but we're gonna look back and think that the COVID years were our best years. They were essential, and, people were home. They were working from home, they were forced to work from home, or they were not working in at home. They got some checks and did some other stuff. They were looking at their house and thought, hey, this is the time I got time to put in that hardwood floor I wanted. I like these cabinets. So, new doors, whatever they were doing, a new desk, what furniture they were buying, because they weren't traveling. You weren't taking beach trips and everything else. So our industry actually survived better at that time because we were exporting. They were still made in China or Vietnam. A lot of our lumber was going there, but it was being purchased back here and utilized throughout all of our, throughout the industry, throughout companies and so on, as people were making home offices and things like that. So some of it is also just the trend that happened within the forest industry that specifically, where now I was at a different conference, a gentleman from Italy, we were talking about the downturn, and he said, well, it's your turn in the barrel. Didn't make me feel very good. But his statement was, the airline industry, the hotel industry, the restaurant industry for 3 years took it on the chin. Now that COVID's over and people are out spending money, they're doing everything else but buying something for their home at this time. They're spending $5 grand on a Myrtle Beach trip or whatever they're doing, cruise and everything else they couldn't do. And so some of it is getting through that. Now on top of this, with the tariff side that we're into, that is the last crippling jolt that we can't do.
Yeah, but if you remember, back in 19 was when the tariffs hit before.
Yeah, 2007.
And we were coming out when COVID hit, and it was looking better right when COVID hit. So, I don't know, I do know, the biggest problem we have in the U.S. is we don't focus on U.S.-made products. I mean, I'm guilty of it, I know the rest of us are. Our emphasis should be on what's made here in the USA. I'm not saying we don't need exports to help complement it, but we're our own worst enemies.
It actually started back in the 90s with that.
Yeah.
Kind of quick North Carolina disappeared with that.
Yeah.
That's where it's at, is that, I'd love to buy, say it all the time, to buy American, right? But, I just got a high point, count all the American hardwoods that were in the furniture, right? But it wasn't, so at the same time, it's a situation that what I would like to see, if it's gonna help our forest industry, we cannot, in my opinion, we cannot say that we're gonna manufacture back here. If you wanna buy American furniture, it's very hard to buy, okay? Unless you're gonna go to the Amish place, okay? So, what I would like to see is for the furniture or for these tariffs, okay, what is coming into Ashley Furniture Store or Big Sandy or whatever, that if we're gonna resolve these tariffs, we're gonna have that particular furniture that does have a certain percentage of American hardwoods in it is not here. Okay, because they would continue to promote buying our product, our rough lumber. But
but then compete with it coming back over here, that it's not gonna get, because we're double hit. We're hit on what I put in the container to send to China or Vietnam and have to negotiate with them. And then they're making it into something that's gonna come in over here, and it was 145% tariff on it. So the importers, so we're out. You know, I mean, it's just, it's unviable. Okay. So, I mean, that's my take on it, you know, and where it's happening at this point, but there's a way to do it. I just don't see it, you know, we're just not gonna immediately start making that furniture again. It's just, it's not.
There's a book, your factory, it's wrote based on the backs of furniture. And it's very interesting because it just bothers you, and it's the whole thing about exports and how we're, you know, how the economy was gonna be driven down for the US because of the exports. It's interesting, it's good. I'm not saying you don't need it all, because we export, we actually sell now to a company in Canada that I sold to early in the 2000s, this period, because of trade issues and all that, and now that's, so, you know, it's
Hopefully things may circle back around, huh? So this has been some interesting information, kind of maybe out of some of our wheelhouse and whatnot, but I think there's some things. West Virginia Farm Bureau has a logo, and it's really stands time, but there's two workhorses on the picture. You are familiar with workhorses, right? Two big workhorses, and their motto is, we pull the most when we pull together. And so that's something that I think the forest industry has done well with me standing outside looking in, is you all do pull together. And we've got these tools in the toolbox, and sometimes we got to loan them to our neighbor. But just remember that. I mean, we've had some great information presented thus far that's out of a lot of our wheelhouses, but we can stash those down in our toolbox, and I think we can maybe lend it to somebody at some point. So, Pat, are you ready?
Can be.
So, Pat, do you have a presentation? Okay.
You have to show me the news, I have it in the kitchen.
Pat is with WVU Extension. Pat's going to talk real briefly here on biofuel and the chips and work that he's been working with on that. And then we'll grab some lunch here when they get it out. And then one thing I always like to do is I like to do some industry updates. And I know you all are pretty tight-lipped on a lot of things, and that's fine, that's good. But maybe if you can be thinking of as we can go around the room of maybe a little tidbit on some industry updates, what we're seeing. A lot of you are familiar with what we're seeing, but maybe just a small update that we can share with everyone that may help us down the road pull together. All morning, so you haven't missed out on a lot. You folks that like to be outside. Huh? Yeah. Is it gonna work?
If it doesn't, I can wait. All right, well, good morning, everybody. I know it's getting close to dinner time, and I know everybody has an empty belly. There we go, we got it. And what do I do to switch it? Okay. I do work for Extension for the short term, but this is not affiliated with Extension. This is something that I've come across and I've been working on here for well over a year, and that is the chip market. And I've worked with outfits in 6 different states, and with the closing of Chillicothe, Pixel, pretty much as of last Wednesday, quit taking anything. The chip market and the third of the resource that they get came from West Virginia. It's really put it into play. But one question I'm going to ask real quick is, who here has any kind of manufacturing facility? Anybody? Who here likes to turn the light on? You get up in the morning, it's dark out, and you turn the light on. Who likes the light to come on? Okay, yes. To try to be as current as possible with the research, I was doing some last night, and there's outfits out there, and they're grouped together. They're called grid resiliency groups that monitor the PG&E grid, 13 states that are in our electric grid in West Virginia. And their latest research shows that we will be having brownouts and blackouts in our 13-state region, which includes West Virginia, before or by 2030. So that means when you fire up Laurel Creek some morning, power may not come on. You get up in the middle of the night, you have to use the bathroom, the light may not come on in your bathroom. Because we're out of power. We're completely out of power, and the demand for power is increasing. In the state of Virginia alone, so we do a lot of work with the state of Virginia, they're going to have an increase in demand of power by 85% by 2035 over what they produce right now. West Virginia has a lot of things going on. There's a lot of stuff in economic development. I've worked with a couple people there where people are wanting to come in and do all this stuff, especially the eastern part of the state, and they have all these grandiose ideas, and they have all this money they want to spend, but there's no power to produce, to put in these places. So we've been, I partnered up with a friend of mine, Jerry Sislick. He's a logger up north, and he produces chips. His chips go into Parsons or Borough for Kingsford. So, and that's a dirty chip, and of course there's a difference between a dirty chip and a clean chip, but in the near future there's not going to be a whole lot of difference because nobody's going to be taking clean chips in this area anyway. So what we've been doing is we've been trying to go through and trying to find people that will talk to us about this. I have, let me see here, okay. I'm going to read this real quick, and I'm going to try to go through this very quickly. So if anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, you're more than welcome to. How do we properly manage a resource we can't sell everything it produces? We all fall into that. Anybody in the wood business right now falls into that. There may be a few answers to that, but we need to look at one that may be profitable too. And there's the $64,000 question is, how do we make money? We can't go out there and buy equipment. We can't go out there and hire people. And I'll speak to that fellow that was sitting in the corner. I don't know his name, but he asked about the workforce. I'll speak to that real quick in a second. But we have to have ability to have a resource that's going to make us some money. I do remember the days. My background is I cut my first trees in the 1970s with my dad, and I spent the rest of my time either cutting timber, climbing trees, and I spent 30 years in the sawmill with a short stint in coal mines. So for 30 years, I exported lumber. I can just remember working Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, stuffing containers so fast to try to get them to the dock by cutoff time that it was unending. The orders we had from Spain, from Belgium, going into UK, going a little bit into China back then, not a whole lot, and then going into Vietnam, and all these different outfits, even South Africa. We loaded a lot of lumber going to South Africa, a ton of lumber going to South Africa. That's not there anymore. It's not. So we need to find new ways to do with what we have been gifted with. We've been gifted with a resource in this state that's 78% forested, and 93% of our power comes from coal. So you start talking about alternative energy, everybody tightens up. It's like when a state truck shows up on a log job, everybody tightens up, like, what did I do wrong? You know, I understand that. But what we do is every entity that works in this business, including the government, including the county level, the town level, the state level, has to work together to figure out what we're going to do in the future with our power. We want to bring all these things in here, but we have no other power. So that's what we're talking about here, is trying to get the information out there, the enthusiasm out there to do this. Because the coal lobby is pretty strong in West Virginia. Like I said, 93% of our power comes from coal. And when coal hears that we want to start bringing these power plants to do this, it's not a very good conversation. But, here we go. But, we have had these conversations. We've been visited with some friends and some co-workers and some people in industry to different different power stations around the state that produce their power from coal, but they don't like the idea of alternative fuels, because to them an alternative fuel is natural gas, and the coal operators don't like natural gas. There's a whole big scenario here, and I'm not going to get into it. But we look at here, is let's start where it's most important. We have a gift with a resource, and we're required to be good stewards. And everything I do is based on faith. I'm just saying, I'm a Christian man. I base everything on my faith, and it speaks directly to it in the Scripture. So I do this. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why I made this is I did this presentation in Ohio, Northern Ohio this winter, and about 75% of the people in this were Amish. And they respond to this a lot better. But I respond to it also because it just spells it right out that we need to be good stewards of a resource. But as we go on with this, as we meet with people, we talk to people, they don't even realize we have the resource. I was at a meeting not too long ago, and I was sitting with some people, and I'm not going to mention the name, but I was talking about a power plant that had been shut down. It was a coal-fired power plant that had been shut down in 2012, and at the last stage before they shut down in 2012, they were starting to turn it over to biofuel. They were going to be able to use it, but they shut the plant down. So when I was meeting with this lady in her office, she said, well, we can't do anything with this power plant because there's no biofuel available in this area. And I said, what are you talking about? So one of the things about the education process that we try to talk about is getting that information out there that it is available. You know, in northern West Virginia alone, in a year's time, we can probably produce about 500,000 tons without much trouble of either round wood, and obviously a warehouse can speak to everything that they take out of the northern part of the state, and any kind of chips. So we can produce it here. We have the ability to produce it here. Leslie Equipment has a bunch of chippers sitting right there in their lot. I mean, obviously that's money. In the down market, you don't want to spend it. I get it. But we can produce this product in order to not to maintain, but to be able to produce as a fuel for producing power for the state. Now, I can get into a whole lot of details. We've been working with a company from California that wants to get into West Virginia and build these plants for these data centers they want to put in, for these AI things they want to put in, to charge your electric vehicles. But you know, the most important thing for electric vehicle is coal mine. What produces the power? When we charge our Tesla or I don't know what Prius gets. I don't know. I have an F-350 truck that burns a lot of diesel, so I can't really speak to much of that. But anyway, but my truck can charge a Tesla when it runs out of power. I do know that. But what I'm getting at is we have it here in this state to do it with. And I'm going to try to hurry up here because I know everybody wants to eat. And so the truth of the matter is, this gets right down to the nitty-gritty. Our PJM grid, that's our 13 state electrical grid, is out of power. Instead of buying power from outside borders, why not fully utilize what we already have here? We have it here. We have it here. We actually have the infrastructure in place in a lot of areas. I looked it up, and there's at least 3 coal generating power plants that are still standing, that did produce power, they're now idle, that we can do something with. We work with Dominion Power in Virginia. They took 3 idle coal power plants, turned them over to chips, now they're producing power for the grid. They're not very big. I think they run around 50 to 75 megawatts, which isn't huge in power standpoint, but it's something to put electric out on the grid so we can keep on developing economically. Because we can't develop economically if somebody can't come in there and plug in an extension cord. It's not going to give them any power. It makes no sense. So we go through a lot of people and a lot of stuff that people want to add to this. And I love when people add to the conversation because most people don't realize that this conversation even needs to be had. So going with this next one here, let me read it from this side. I don't want to. You can't hear me. The thought of turning a power plant on biofuel chips is nothing new, but the drive to do this has waned, which is a true statement. I believe there is a great opportunity to do this in West Virginia as long as the price per ton is there. One thing, I'll just a caveat with that, working with the outfit in California who builds these type of plants, in California, people pay them to bring in their chips and their wood waste and round wood. Here in West Virginia, the chips are a commodity. So it's a little different structure. It has worked with 3 locations in Virginia with Dominion Power. They have converted 3 formerly coal-fired power plants to wood chips. They burn a lot of pine, but also hardwoods, which produce more BTUs, which would be the basis of our resource here. We are currently working on 1 power plant that we hope the government will see the benefit, not only in the logging business, but also the power problem. That place I'm talking about is a power plant in Grant County, West Virginia, in Marion County, and they are ready to sign a contract to buy 60,000 tons of chips a year if we can get some subsidy for them. So there's a letter on the governor's desk right now. I was just told about that, and he's hopefully going to see a little bit of the merit to what we want to do. So And on top of this, like the education part, when I called the governor's office back in, back in March, I didn't get the governor, of course, he was doing something else. I got one of his aides and I explained to him what I want to do, and he stopped me and he said, "Sir?" I said, "No, sir, just pack." He said, I don't understand anything you're talking about." And I thought to myself, this is beyond frustrating, because here is one of the largest businesses in West Virginia, or industries in West Virginia. I think it's number 4 right now. And you know nothing about it. How do you talk to the governor and give him good information if you don't know anything about a business which employs a lot of people in the state and produces a lot of lumber, produces a lot of logs in the state? So anyway, that's a sidebar too. But that's part of the education, that we can do this. We definitely can do this. All right. Let's see. I'm going to do some preliminary research. The resources available, the ability to make chips is there. What we need is motivation to put an idea out there to power companies, government folks, and as well as the public. So this is kind of what this is. When I got the email from Brian, thank you for allowing me to speak. I was very excited about this because I've done this in a lot of different places now. And Dominion Power just got hold of me just a couple weeks ago, and the lady I deal with Dominion Power just put a formal invitation out to the governor. She says, if you can get the governor down here, we'll roll the red carpet out, we'll show him what we do, and show him what the potential is to do in West Virginia, because they have one power plant in West Virginia. And she said, we can do this, you can do this. And it just, like I said, the enthusiasm is there, the resource is there, and I'm going to, I think that's my last slide. Yeah, last slide. So I'm hurrying up here. As we move forward in the log business, one of the ways to stay successful is to diversify. The production of low-grade wood and chips may be one avenue that can be explored by each and every one in this room. We have been gifted with it. Let's use it wisely and make a profit at the same time. Isn't that why we're in business? I mean, come on now. Why are we in business? We're in business to make a profit. We live in America. It's capitalism. We need to make a profit in order to stay in business. There's costs associated with this. I don't even want to get started on hydrogen. I think hydrogen is going to go away. I was told last week by a state senator that the tax credit for hydrogen is going away because they see the failings of it. And I'm not going to go into it because there might be some components of hydrogen in here, and I'm not here for an argument. But when you look at the solar and wind, their fuel is free, right? The solar only works for half the day, and wind only works when it's windy. And there's a lot of stuff in the maintenance and the longevity of it and different things. But anyway, what I'm trying to get out here is we have the ability to do it in this state. We have the ability to make this work in this state, whether it be a small power plant that's putting power on the grid, a small power plant that is supplying a data center that's built right next to it. That's a big thing now. Chips were deemed a carbon neutral type of energy, or not, carbon neutral chip is what the federal government has deemed wood chips, even though some states don't agree with that. But here is something we can promote to these big outfits that want to be green. Like Google is looking at a place in Waynesburg, Pennsylvania right now. They want to shut down their municipal airport and put a Google place right there. And they want to produce their own power. How are they going to produce their power? It's only going to be a couple different ways. One of them could be this way right here. And right up in that area, I'll guarantee you they find all the chips and all the round they need. And not taking anything away from heaters at all, because there's that much. With Pixel shut down, the whole dynamic has changed in the space of about a week. So going forward with this, if anybody has any questions, I'm not an expert by any means. Like I said, I started cutting trees back in the 1970s with my dad. I've been doing it ever since. And the wood business has put a ton of food on my table in that time. And I'm very appreciative. I worked for sawmills, I worked for logging outfits, that kind of thing. I'm doing safety right now for at least the next month. But after this, man, I'd love to see this take off, because everybody in this room will be affected by it.
We got a question, Pat.
Go right ahead.
What moisture do the chips have to be before it's feasible?
It can be green, and you can set up your air your over fire and under fire air, your boiler, to take it through a chip, or you can put it through a dryer, depending on what process you want to use.
Well, yeah, but there's going to be some point at which I know that they can do it with green, but then you get less benefit from the BTUs because
Exactly.
you're going to BTUs to dry.
And the one disadvantage when I was talking about Dominion, one of the plants that Dominion has, I think it's in South Boston, Virginia, I think. 90% of their fuel is pine.
Yeah.
So in the summertime, if they let the pine sit out for just a couple of weeks before they haul it in, it's a little rough on our chipper, but it also less moisture content.
I can see if you're going to, and
brought in green dust, we blew it in from sawmill, put it in silo, heated it in. But it took a certain temperature for that combustion to start. And with that, what I'm talking about is, and I don't want to get too far into it, we had to adjust our over fire, under fire, depending on what our species was, depending on what our moisture content was, to have it burn efficiently to make it steam to fire our dry cleans, for the heat for our dry cleans. So yes, speaking into that, I don't know the technical things, but the part that I do know is they set up their boilers to burn the fuel that they have on hand. So the boilers that they have down there in Virginia that burn mostly pine, they'll be set up differently to burn hardwoods because you need more air. Just because hardwoods they'll produce more BTUs, but they also take more to ignite. They don't have the resins in them, different things like that. Getting the technical stuff. But yeah, every power plant I visited that does biofuel, all their product is outside. So whatever the weather is, that's what the product is. Yes.
Yeah, first, obviously we make pellet fuel, so we take chips, dry. But our pellet fuel is strictly for heat source, domestic pellet stoves, pellet fuel. And so I'm sure you're already aware of Drax Power and Viva and what the UK does and a lot of Europe already. They converted their coal-fired plants over to producing electricity in huge quantities. But they buy an industrial grade pellet fuel. They speak of dirty chip. So obviously all these plants were built throughout the South. But like you say, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, close to where all paper mills shut down. Where now the pine source is. For this state, we've looked at it up in the New England states. They've already got some colleges. It took off for a little while, but they put their own power generator through using chips, and that stuff. I mean, out there, I'd be interested to see. We've looked at it as well. Try to get with the governor, but previous governors and so on to try to, as you mentioned, not to cast stone, but it's almost impossible when you try to talk about another power source versus coal.
Yeah, and I'd say embrace coal. Embrace coal.
Yeah,
embrace wood chips,
it can be used with it. I'm not sure that. There's additional manufacturing as we do to pelletize it to dry it. You have to obviously to dry it to get down to the moisture content, and then you can create that BTU plus less cost.
I mean, we got a virgin biochar market in West Virginia. There's a plant being built as we speak. And with the machines are actually being put in as we speak. I stopped there last week to talk to them. And there's an outlet for sawdust. They like dry sawdust. They like dry chips. Their process calls for that. But that doesn't mean that there's not ways around that. Meaning, dry it ourselves, cut it at a different time of year. There's all kind of, we're starting to talk about semantics here, but I don't want to get into that. But, I do remember going back to those days of containers and such like that, where it was a residual that we couldn't use. I mean, I don't know how many truckloads we took to Baltimore. We basically connived the truck driver to drive it to Baltimore for us to drop it off on horse farms, or ranches, or whatever you want to call them. I don't like horses. I like cows because they need them. But going back to those days, the whole market has changed completely since I've been in it. And it isn't. I mean, Western North Carolina, when I worked for Coastal Lumber, we had one salesman that would move at least 20 to 25 million feet of green lumber into Western North Carolina every year. That's all he did. He'd send us orders at the mill. There may be 100 orders on that one paper, like DAX 1 to 100. And anytime we produced 2 common salt maple, every bit of it went. We don't work in the market like that anymore. We don't. 8-quarter Reddit. 8-quarter Reddit was a specialized thing we did. 8-quarter white was a specialized thing we did. I remember one of these Forestry Forums before, there was a fellow here, one of the log buyers from Great West Virginia Barrel Company. Touted everything. What's market changed? COVID ended, people quit drinking a lot of bourbon. So the market changed. Went from 3 million barrels a year down to under 2 million barrels a year is where we're at now. It's not sustainable for somebody with that kind of stuff. I understand it. I don't get it, but I understand it. I don't drink personally, but if you want to drink bourbon, have at it. Support the lumber industry. Drink more bourbon. But anyway,
All right, any
I'm
questions?
done.
Yeah, any
Thank
questions?
you, everybody.
Any questions else for Pat Early, biofuel and chip? Yeah, so hey, good time to break. The mind can only hold what the bladder can withstand, and lunch is ready. So restrooms are to the outside, and we'll break. City of Summersville. think, some very good information today. Drinks are on the back, snacks are on the back, food's on the table.